My parents refused to let me celebrate my 18th birthday because my brother deserved the spotlight. So I left home that night without looking back. 4 years later, their golden child discovered how successful I'd become, and her jealous outburst blew the family. I, 22M, never expected turning 18 to be the breaking point. But looking back now, it was inevitable. The morning started like any other. I woke up early, made breakfast for everyone, and waited for someone to acknowledge that today was different. My mother walked past me to fuss over my younger sister's college application essays. My father barely glanced up from his newspaper. My sister, the golden child herself, complained about her coffee being too hot. Not a single word about my birthday. I told myself it didn't matter. I'd survived 17 years of being invisible in my own home. But then my mother announced that we needed to discuss something important at dinner. My heart lifted for just a moment. Maybe they'd planned a surprise. Maybe this year would be different. Dinner came. I sat at the table still holding on to that fragile hope. My father cleared his throat and explained that my sister had been nominated for a prestigious scholarship. The interview was in 2 weeks, and she needed to prepare. My mother jumped in, saying they decided to throw a celebration party this weekend, to boost her confidence and show their support. The house would be full of relatives, my sister's friends, important people who could help her future. I felt my hands go cold. This weekend. My 18th birthday was in 3 days, this Saturday. I asked quietly if they remembered what day that was. My mother looked confused for a moment, then waved her hand dismissively. She said, my birthday could be celebrated any time, but my sister's opportunity was time-sensitive. She deserved the spotlight. This was important for her future. My father agreed, adding that I should be mature enough to understand. After all, I was becoming an adult now. Adults made sacrifices for family. My sister just smiled, that same entitled smile I'd seen my entire life, and thanked them for always supporting her dreams. Something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just a quiet, final break. I excused myself from the table, went to my room, and started packing. I'd been saving money for my part-time job at the grocery store for 2 years. I had enough for a security deposit and first month's rent. I'd been planning to use it for college, but college could wait. Freedom couldn't. I packed everything that mattered into 2 duffel bags, who'd been the only person who ever remembered my birthday before she passed. My laptop, my documents, clothes, the scholarship letters I'd received that my parents never bothered to read. I'd been accepted to a state university with a full ride, but I'd never told them. Why would I? They never asked about my future. At midnight, when everyone was asleep, I left. I walked out the front door, locked it behind me, and didn't look back. I'd already lined up a room in a shared apartment near campus with 2 other students. The guy who'd shown me the place didn't ask questions when I arrived with my bags in the middle of the night. He just handed me the key and told me the Wi-Fi password. The first few months were brutal. I worked 2 jobs while taking a full course load. I ate ramen most nights. I slept 4 hours if I was lucky. But I was free. Nobody dismissed my achievements. Nobody compared me to a golden child. Nobody made me feel like I was an afterthought in my own life. My phone rang constantly for the first week. I ignored every call. Finally, I sent one text to my mother explaining that I'd left, I was safe, and I needed space. I asked them not to contact me. The calls stopped after that, not because they respected my wishes, but because they were relieved. One less obligation, one less disappointment to manage. I threw myself into my studies. Computer science had always fascinated me, and I was good at it. Really good. By my sophomore year, I'd started doing freelance web development on the side. By junior year, I'd built a small app that caught the attention of a tech startup. They offered me an internship that turned into a full-time position before I even graduated. The app was simple, really. A platform that helped small businesses manage their inventory and sales without the enterprise-level price tag. It filled a gap in the market, and it took off faster than I'd imagined. Within a year of graduating, I'd gone from intern to junior developer to leading my own team. The company grew, the app expanded, and suddenly I was making more money than I'd ever thought possible. I bought a small condo in the city. Nothing flashy, but it was mine. I paid cash. I'd learned early that debt was chains, and I'd spent enough of my life trapped. I kept my head down, did my work, and built a life that had nothing to do with the family that forgot me. 4 years passed. I thought about them occasionally, usually late at night when work stress kept me awake. I wondered if my sister had gotten that scholarship. If my parents ever noticed I was gone, really noticed, not just as an empty chair at dinner. But I never reached out. The wound had scabbed over and I wasn't interested in picking at it. Then came the tech conference. My company was presenting our new features, and I was scheduled to give a keynote speech about innovation in small business solutions. It was a big deal, the kind of exposure that could make a career. The conference was in my hometown, ironically enough, but my CEO had personally asked me to present. Running away from my past seemed cowardly, so I agreed. The presentation went well. Really well. The room was packed, and people were genuinely interested in what we built. Afterwards, I did the networking thing, shaking hands and exchanging business cards. That's when I saw her, my sister, standing near the refreshment table, holding the conference badge that identified her as a job seeker. She was older, obviously, but that entitled expression hadn't changed. She was talking to someone, gesturing animatedly, when her eyes landed on me. The recognition was instant. Her face went through several emotions in rapid succession: shock, confusion, and then something ugly: jealousy. She pushed through the crowd toward me. I considered walking away, but something kept me rooted. Curiosity, maybe, or the desire to finally stand my ground. She demanded to know what I was doing here. Her voice was sharp, accusatory, as if I'd committed some crime by existing in her space. I explained calmly that I'd just given the keynote presentation. I was the lead developer for the app that everyone was talking about. Her face flushed red. She insisted that wasn't possible. I'd been a nobody, a grocery store clerk with no ambition. How could I possibly be successful? She graduated from a prestigious university, had done everything right, and she was still looking for a decent job. Meanwhile, I'd abandoned my family and somehow ended up here, pretending to be important. I didn't rise to the bait. I simply told her that I'd worked hard, made opportunities, and built something meaningful. Then, I excused myself and walked away. But she wasn't done. She followed me out to the lobby, her voice getting louder. She accused me of being selfish, of abandoning our parents when they needed me. She claimed I'd broken their hearts by disappearing. She said I owed them an explanation, owed them support, owed them gratitude for raising me. I stopped walking and turned to face her. The lobby was full of conference attendees, and people were starting to stare. I asked her quietly if she remembered my 18th birthday. She looked confused. I asked if she remembered the party they threw that weekend, the celebration for her scholarship nomination. Did she remember whose birthday they'd erased to make room for her spotlight? Her expression shifted. Defensive now. She argued that it had been important, that opportunities like that didn't come twice. She said I should have understood, should have been supportive. It was just one birthday. I told her it wasn't about the birthday. It was about 18 years of being invisible. 18 years of watching everything revolve around her, while I existed in the margins. The birthday was just the final confirmation that I would never matter to them the way she did. So I left. I built a life where I mattered, where my work was valued, where I wasn't constantly compared to a golden child and found wanting. She started to cry. Angry ones. She accused me of being bitter and jealous. She said I'd always resented her success. She insisted that our parents had loved us equally, that I was rewriting history to justify abandoning my family. I didn't argue. There was no point. People who've never been invisible can't understand what it does to you. Instead, I asked her how the scholarship had gone, the one that was so important they'd canceled my birthday for it. She went quiet. Then admitted she hadn't gotten it. The interview had gone poorly. She'd been too nervous. But it didn't matter because she'd gotten into a top university anyway, had graduated with honors, had done everything right. I nodded slowly, then asked why she was at a job conference with a seeker badge if everything had gone so right. The question hit home. Her face crumpled, and she admitted that the job market was harder than expected. Her degree wasn't opening the doors she thought it would. She'd been looking for months. Our parents were helping with expenses, but money was tight. They'd suggested she reach out to me actually, see my name listed as lead developer. They thought maybe I could help her get a job. The audacity was stunning. 4 years of silence, and they only reached out when they wanted something. When their golden child needed a favor from the son they'd forgotten. I told her no, simple as that. I wasn't interested in being a solution to problems they'd created. I wasn't interested in helping people who'd never helped me. I wished her luck with her job search and walked away. She screamed after me. Called me selfish, ungrateful, a terrible son and brother. People were definitely staring now. Security was moving toward us. I just kept walking. That night my phone exploded, texts and calls from numbers I deleted years ago. My mother, my father, even extended family members I'd barely remembered. All of them had the same message. How dare I humiliate my sister in public? How dare I refuse to help family? How dare I be so selfish after everything they'd done for me? I read through them all with a strange detachment. Then I blocked every number and went to bed. Update 1. The fallout was more dramatic than I'd anticipated. My sister, in her infinite wisdom, decided to take her grievances public. She posted on social media about her terrible brother, who'd abandoned his loving family, and now refused to help his struggling sister, despite his success. She painted herself as the victim of my cruelty, conveniently omitting the part where they'd erased my existence for 18 years. The post got traction in our hometown community groups. People who'd never met me were commenting about entitled millennials who forgot where they came from. My parents shared the post, adding their own commentary about heartbreak and disappointment. But here's the thing about the internet. It cuts both ways. One of my former high school teachers saw the post. She remembered me. Remembered the quiet kid who'd always been at school early and left late because home wasn't welcoming. She commented asking if this was the same family that had never attended my academic award ceremonies or my robotics team competitions. Another teacher joined in, mentioning that they'd written college recommendations for me that my parents had never even known about. Then my old boss from the grocery store added his perspective. He remembered the 18-year-old who'd shown up at midnight, asking if he could crash in the break room because he'd left home. He'd helped me find that first apartment, had given me extra shifts when I needed money for textbooks. The narrative started to shift. People began asking questions. Why had I left home at 18? Why hadn't my parents known about my college acceptance? What had really happened? My mother called from a number I hadn't blocked yet. She was crying, begging me to tell people the truth, to stop making them look bad. The irony was almost funny. I asked her what truth she wanted me to tell. The truth about the forgotten birthdays? The truth about the constant comparisons? The truth about being told my achievements didn't matter because they weren't as impressive as my sister's? She insisted they'd always loved me equally. They just wanted to make sure my sister reached her potential. She'd needed more support because she was more sensitive. I'd always been independent, so they'd given me space. They thought I preferred it that way. I asked her if she'd ever actually asked me what I preferred. The silence on the other end was answer enough. She switched tactics. She said family was supposed to forgive. I was supposed to be the bigger person. She was getting older. And she didn't want this rift. My father's health wasn't great. They wanted me back in their lives. I told her I'd think about it and hung up. I didn't block the number, not yet. Update 2. My sister's social media post ended up doing more damage to her than to me. Someone had screenshotted the comments from my teachers and old boss, and shared them in the same community groups. The story of the forgotten son who'd built a successful career, despite his family's neglect, was apparently more compelling than the story of the ungrateful brother. Local media picked it up. Not major news, just a human interest piece in the hometown paper about family dynamics and the pressure of favoritism. They reached out to me for comment. I declined. I'd never wanted to be part of a public spectacle. But my sister gave an interview. She doubled down, insisting that I was exaggerating, that our parents had always been supportive. She claimed I was using a childhood grudge to justify cutting off my family. She cried on camera, playing the victim role she'd perfected over the years. The interview backfired spectacularly. People noticed inconsistencies in her story. She claimed our parents had supported both of us equally, but then admitted they were currently helping her with expenses while she job hunted. She said I'd left without warning, then mentioned they'd tried to call me back. She couldn't keep her narrative straight. The reporter, to her credit, had done her homework. She asked about my 18th birthday. My sister's face on camera was priceless. She stammered, tried to redirect, finally admitted they'd had a celebration that weekend, but insisted it wasn't instead of my birthday. Just near it. The reporter asked what they'd done for my birthday. My sister went quiet. The piece aired with the title, "When the Golden Child Tarnishes, A Family's Reckoning with Favoritism." It was fair, actually. It presented both sides but didn't shy away from the uncomfortable questions. After it aired, my phone started ringing with a different kind of call. Journalists wanting to hear my side. Publishers asking if I'd considered writing a book about overcoming family dysfunction. My favorite was a podcast host who wanted to do a series on achievement despite adversity. I declined them all. This wasn't about fame or revenge. It was about boundaries. But then my father called. Not crying like my mother. Just tired. He asked if we could meet. Just the two of us. He said he'd been doing a lot of thinking. He wanted to talk. I surprised myself by agreeing. We met at a coffee shop halfway between my condo and their house. He looked older than I remembered. Grayer. Smaller somehow. He ordered black coffee and sat across from me in silence for a long moment. Then he apologized. Not the performative kind. Not the excuse-laden kind. A real apology. He said he'd failed me. He and my mother had gotten so focused on my sister's needs that they'd convinced themselves I didn't have any. I'd been easy. Independent. So they'd let me raise myself. They told themselves it was what I wanted. But really, it was just easier than dealing with two children's needs. He said, watching the interview had been like looking in a mirror and hating what he saw. His daughter had learned her entitlement from them. They'd created a monster and sacrificed their son in the process. I asked him why. Why had it always been about her? What had I done to deserve being erased? He had no good answer. He said my sister had been a difficult baby, a challenging toddler, a dramatic child. She'd demanded attention, and they'd given it. By the time they'd realized what they were doing, the pattern was set. And I'd never complained, never demanded, never made them face what they were doing wrong. So they'd kept doing it. I told him that wasn't an excuse. Children shouldn't have to beg for their parents' attention. Children shouldn't have to earn basic acknowledgement. He agreed. He said he wasn't making excuses, just explaining how it had happened. Not that it mattered now. We sat in silence for a while. Then he asked what I wanted. Did I want them in my life? Did I want a relationship? Or was this meeting just closure, before I disappeared again? I didn't have an answer. I still don't. Not completely. Part of me wants to walk away and never look back. Part of me wants the family I never had, even though I know it's probably impossible at this point. I told him I needed time. Real time. Not a few days or weeks. Time to figure out if forgiveness was even possible, let alone healthy. He nodded and said he understood. Then, he slid an envelope across the table. Inside were 18 birthday cards, one for each year they'd missed or dismissed or forgotten. Each one handwritten with memories of that year, apologies for what they'd missed, acknowledgement of achievements they'd never celebrated. The 18th one for the birthday they'd erased, simply said, "I'm sorry we made you invisible. You deserved the spotlight, you always did." I took the envelope home. I haven't opened most of the cards yet. They're sitting on my desk, a physical reminder that maybe, possibly, people can change. Update 3. It's been 3 months since the coffee shop meeting. My father and I have had lunch twice more. My mother joined us for the 3rd meeting. She cried, apologized, tried to hug me. I let her, but it felt awkward. Some distances can't be closed with a hug. My sister hasn't contacted me directly. I heard through my father that she finally found a job. Nothing glamorous, just an entry-level position at a marketing firm. She's apparently in therapy, dealing with the reality that the world doesn't revolve around her. I hope it helps. I genuinely do. Her narcissism was taught, not inherent. As for me, I'm taking things day by day. I haven't forgiven them, not really. But I'm trying to understand them. There's a difference. The app continues to grow. I got promoted to VP of Product Development. I'm considering starting my own company, building something entirely mine. The thought is both terrifying and exhilarating. I started dating someone I met through work. She knows the whole story, and she doesn't think I'm broken for having boundaries. That's refreshing. Last week was my 22nd birthday. My father called to wish me happy birthday. My mother sent flowers. My sister sent a card. A simple one that just said she was working on being better, and hoped someday I could see that. I didn't respond to any of them, not out of spite, but because I was busy. I'd taken the day off work and spent it with friends, real friends who'd been there through the building years. We went hiking, had dinner, laughed about stupid things. It was a good birthday, not because my family remembered, but because I'd built a life where I didn't need them to remember for the day to matter. Maybe that's the real revenge. Not public humiliation or cutting them off forever. Just living well. Just being successful, and happy, and whole despite everything they didn't give me. They wanted me to sacrifice for the golden child. Instead, I sacrificed the toxic family dynamic, and built something golden myself. I don't know if I'll ever have a normal relationship with my parents or my sister. Maybe in time, maybe never. But I know this. I'm not invisible anymore. Not to the people who matter, not to myself. And that's enough.